Hey everyone, this is Steve of PublishPress, and in this episode of the PublishPress Podcast, I'm talking with Jamie Marsland. You probably know Jamie best from YouTube. He runs a very successful and popular YouTube channel focused on WordPress, teaching people how to use the WordPress core and trying to explain WordPress in easy terms. But that really scratches the surface of what he does. He is a very prolific writer, guitarist, app creator. He has generated, he says, over 40 different apps, mainly using AI this year. And he's just a very interesting and creative guy who always tries to put himself at the forefront of what's happening in technology nowadays. We have a long conversation about AI, its impact on WordPress, and its impact in creativity in general. I think you're going to love this conversation. And afterwards, head over to YouTube and subscribe to hear more of Jamie's work. Hey, Jamie, welcome to the PublishPress Podcast.
Hi, Steve. Thank you so much for having me. How are you?
Great. You're calling in from your famous shed in your back garden, your YouTube studio?
Yeah. Shed is a bit of a demeaning word for it. It's a garden,
Okay.
a garden office. I live in, I think it's 1930s house in a town called Cheltenham in the UK. And this is a substantial, I'd say, garage out the back that has been converted into a little sanctuary and then turned into a kind of YouTube studio stroke work office.
So people will probably know you from your YouTube channel. And at the beginning of almost every video, there's a little introductory scene where you come down through the garden and come towards your home office, I guess you'd call it, your home studio. And that's where you are now.
That's where I am now. Yeah, that's literally my 10-meter yard walk out to my home office. I used to work in London, which was a 3-hour commute, probably 6-hour commute there and back. So this is a much better lifestyle. Yeah.
Wait, 6 hours every day?
Not every day. We bought a business in the middle of London. So for a while I was commuting, I guess 3 days a week. I can't really remember. It was a long, long time ago, but you just forget. And I was younger then, so you've got the energy to do it, but I definitely couldn't do it now. But yeah, a lot of time spent on trains and in tubes.
Because you were in the old-fashioned publishing business for a while, right?
Yeah. One of the businesses I ran for a while was a publishing company called Pavilion Publishing. Well, we acquired a company called Pavilion Publishing as part of the group, and they were old school publishing. So they had paper and they had books and they had events, as well as I was kind of brought into the business to move the whole business online. But yeah, and we had salespeople selling display ads and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I'm kind of steeped in publishing on both sides actually. And before that, I was working for a company that provided services to publishing companies. So I've kind of worked both sides of the spectrum. So I'm deeply in love with publishing.
Well, even now you're almost incredibly proficient publisher. You blog, 2, 3, 4 times a week at least. You're one of the most proficient bloggers I've seen in the WordPress space. And I'm curious what your process is. You write constantly, and I see you pushing it out to LinkedIn, to the premium version of X. What's your approach to writing at the moment?
Well, it's kind of AI has kind of unlocked that for me. So if you look back, like probably, I don't know how long it's been, but a year and a half. I wasn't writing that much, but AI has been like, it's like I've got a full-time editor sitting next to me now, which is amazing. So my process is I walk a lot, first thing to say. And that's where a lot of the ideas come, just walking around the hills and around town. And then I've read a lot of books on writing. So I've always wanted to write a book. I am writing a book, which I'm not going to talk about today, but I've always wanted to write a book. So I've read. Go on, sorry, Steve.
It is something completely unrelated to WordPress?
Yeah, completely unrelated. I mean, as far as I've told a few people about it, but top secret. So I've always wanted to, so I've read loads of books on how to write over my life, as a lot of people do without actually writing. But actually AI has kind of unlocked the writing gene in me. Now I can't stop writing because my process simply is I have lots and lots of ideas and then I just do, which is what a lot of the writing books tell you to do, just hammer down a first draft as quickly as possible, very rough, without thinking about, don't worry about the language, don't worry about phrasing, just get the ideas down as quickly as possible. And then I move to my AI friendly editor, and we start co-working it and shaping it and kind of putting it in a way that I want. And then that's kind of the process. But the AI editor has completely unlocked this writing muscle for me. It's been wonderful for me, because I've got all these ideas, and now I can get them down and shape them and get something out that I'm happy with. So it's been a real revelation, actually. And I can't stop writing.
There's a guy, Stephen Pressfield, who he's written a ton of books, including about how to write. And I heard an interview with him the other day, and he said basically his aim on his first draft is almost to be like, there's Jackson Pollock paintings, which are just painted.
Yeah.
My first draft is basically like a Jackson Pollock painting. I'm like throwing the paintbrush, just try and get something down. And so then you can shape it. I guess he would use old-fashioned editorial processes to shape it from there. But you will then take those first notes and actually drop them into ChatGPT, or what's the next step after you have the first draft done?
Yeah, I'll take the draft, and then I'll drop I won't do the whole thing. I'll drop certain things into it and say, how can I make this read a bit better, or take this little bit. So it is, I imagine, I've never worked with a proper editor. I imagine it's working like with a proper editor, but quite a fine sort of detail. I mean, that's kind of my general process. And then it'll be different. How I talk to ChatGPT will be different on the kind of, even though I write mostly about WordPress and kind of the kind of where we're at in terms of this point in time, it will change depending on whether it's more of a personal piece than a more sort of dry. It was an interesting thing yesterday. which I haven't done before. I was writing a fairly not boring post, but there's this really cool block, which I'm doing a video on, which is called the Stretchy Text Block, which the AI Special Projects team have developed. And so I just dropped it into Cursor and said, can you just tell me how this block is actually working under the hood? And it came out and it gave me some great information, and I can use that then to spin out much more quickly a YouTube video. So there's all sorts of ways you can use it in terms of creating content.
When you say speak to ChatGPT, are you actually one of those people that will physically use it for taking voice notes and brainstorming that way, or is everything typed?
Yeah, I'm a typing guy. One of the best things I ever did was I really liked this girl at school. She was a girlfriend, and she went on Pittman's typing course. So, and I thought the right thing to do would be to go on the same course. So I can now touch type, which touch typing has been one of the best skills I've ever learned. So I go to the typewriter because I can type quite quickly. So
you get everything down in ChatGPT. From there, does it go to your WordPress blog? When it's finished, is that like the canonical, is that the main place where you publish?
That's my source of truth. But I've actually developed an app to make it easier for me to do this more quickly. I've always wanted a completely friction-free way of publishing to WordPress without having to log. I mean, it sounds like a small thing, but I'm a big believer in the less friction you have in any publishing process or creative process. You'll probably do more of it. For example, I have I always have guitars lying around the house because I'll play more of them, and so I have this theory that you reduce friction, you'll probably be more creative. And so I wanted a really easy way that I could publish to WordPress and write actually without having to log into WordPress. And so I built a little app, vibe coded a little app called PootleWriter, which is available for free, forever free at PootleWriter.com. And it's just a writing tool. So if you're a writer, you can just go into PootleWriter.com and you start writing. And then there's a little setting where you can connect it to your WordPress website. We don't see any of your content. It's all handled, the app doesn't see any of that. It just publishes it straight to WordPress. And it's basically a little lightweight markdown editor. But you don't have to log in. You just go to an address in the browser and you'll see it and you can start writing. And it's super quick because all the storage is saved locally. It's just vibe coded, and it just makes it very easy for me to write without any kind of distractions.
And so you vibe coded all of this?
Yeah.
Using like Lovable, Replit, one of those tools?
Yeah, I can't remember.
Okay.
Kind of done so many now. I think that was probably, that might have been Lovable or Bolt. Those are kind of the two ones I discovered first. I'm still quite loyal to them. I have used Replit before. So it was either Lovable or Bolt, but I'm kind of a bit obsessed by building apps. I built so many of these things, but I kind of lose track where I built them. Yeah.
So from there, then you'll send it to your WordPress site. It starts at PootleWriter.com, goes to WordPress, goes to LinkedIn, goes to X and other places too.
Yeah, it doesn't do that automatically. So I'll typically take the content from PootleWriter, and I've been experimenting with premium articles on X just as a test in the last year. Because X, if you're a premium member, you can write full length articles. And I did some stats the other day, and I've done 38, I think, articles, and they've had about 80,000 views, which has been kind of, and they've been quite diverse. I'm kind of WordPress focused, but it just gives me a space to share stuff. So they've had a lot of traction actually, and people have been commenting them. Some of those are quite personal as well. And then I'll do the same thing on LinkedIn articles as well. I'll just publish them on LinkedIn articles, generally with a little introduction saying what the article is about. And again, those have done really well on LinkedIn. So it's been quite, I was never really a blogger much before, but in the last year and a half, I've really unintentionally, it's just kind of happened for me. And now I can't stop.
It just really, if it's one of those things sometimes where you find the right tool and it just really, it hits the right spot inside you and really inspires some creativity. So you've gone from really blogging to being a really proficient blogger thanks to AI. And it sounds like the same is true with coding as well, right? You were telling me before we got on that you've been coding like 20, 25, 30 different apps with these tools. Like you're almost addicted to spinning them up.
Yeah. Well, I have, probably like you, I've been in the product game for a long time. So you have lots of ideas. So I built, I got a really cool app, which I'm not going to turn this on because it'll probably distort the microphone. I built another app for WordPress called PootlePhotos, PootlePhotos.com, which again is free. I've always wanted a way to add photos to my website as simply as possible. Like, I know there's apps that do it and they're pretty cool, but they give you full on WordPress. All I wanted was I go to the app, I click a button, give it a title and click publish, and the next second it appears as a post on my website. So now I've got a little photo journal on my website, and this is using a block theme. It just grabs the image and sets it as the featured image. And then on my website, I basically have got a custom template, which just says, just show the featured image with a little title underneath. Now I have a lovely photo journal. So it's kind of really encouraged me to take more photos, which again, I wasn't really doing before, but because I've got this now friction-free way of literally I can take a photo, click a button, and about 2 seconds later, it's on my website in a nice gallery. It's encouraging me to do more of that thing because it's just getting rid of the barriers to the creative process. So if I have an idea, and these apps can just be for me if I want to. That's the nice thing about it. PootleWriter has actually got about 40 loyal people every day using it because I can see the stats. But I've not really publicized it, or I don't really want to promote it, but it's there if people want to test it out. But that's the nice thing about this world we're living in. You can just build an app for you if you want to, just a personal little app that does exactly what you want, and you don't have to support users. You don't have to take feature requests. It's just wonderful.
Yeah, it's very frictionless. And I guess if you do have the dev side to your brain, you're scratching that itch by actually building these things. And then if you have the creative side as well, you're able to scratch that itch by actually using the app, whether it's a writing app or a photos app. It sounds like you have a ton of creativity inside you. You've got the writing. It may end up in a book. You've got the photography. You're a musician as well, right?
I am a musician. Yeah, long-time musician. I'm in a band now, and we play gigs around. I've actually created another app, which
that was going to be my next question.
Which I keep on starting these sentences with I've always wanted a simple idea. Do you play guitar, Steve? Are you a guitarist? Do you play any music?
No, I wish I was more musical on that.
Okay, so I think a lot of guitarists, it's called noodling. You just basically play you come up with like a little riff or a little tune, and so I thought I've always wanted a way to kind of capture those easily, and so I created another app, which is called PootleNoodle, which is just a great name, where you can just take a little video and upload it to WordPress. Again, a bit like Poodle Photos, but just with video, very, very simply. And again, because it's so easy, it just encourages you to do more of it. And I kind of just wanted to make that one because I thought the name was so great. Anyway,
it does sound like a cup ramen or something like that.
Yeah. So yeah, it's I have a lot of ideas, and AI's kind of helped to kind of get them out, I guess, in many ways.
You've always considered yourself a very creative person. There might be a whole bunch of different avenues for it, whether it's music or writing or coding, but what has changed with AI is it sounds like you feel it's really unlocked or removed a lot of barriers for you to be creative.
Yeah, no, it has. I mean, it's been incredible. I mean, one of the things that's happened, I mean, because I guess what part of this unlocking is creating YouTube videos, which I've been doing about 3 or 4 years really. And that's enabled me to have that creative space professionally for the first time properly. Like before, I'd been running businesses or, running my own business, and there's definitely creative opportunities when you do that stuff, as you know. But when you sort of lean into creating YouTube videos, you really lean into the creative process. And that, when I first started doing that properly, that completely unlocked this stuff that's in me anyway, but I could do it professionally for the first time and make money out of it for the first time. And that's kind of really accelerated the process in many ways. Whereas it's kind of, I guess it's like it's like going to the gym and just flex and getting fit. The creative muscle, in my experience, the more you exercise it, the more it kind of turns on in a way, and the more you kind of can do it, and the more ideas you have, to the point where you're waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning excited about doing a video around a scroll to video play block, and which isn't entirely
a little geeky.
That's kind of where you end up.
Oh, so the first big unlock for your creativity wasn't AI, but a couple of years before was when you stopped being an old-fashioned business guy and moved into the YouTube area and had the opportunity to wake up every morning and be creative, to imagine something new.
Yeah, exactly. That was the first. And that's kind of, I think there's times in your life when you realize what you should have been doing for a long time. You can't always do that stuff, but kind of where you just feel like in the flow, and naturally that feels exactly the right place for your brain to be at. And that was a good realization for me to be there, because I absolutely love the YouTube process. I'm completely passionate about everything about it and video content. So it doesn't feel like work often to me, the process of going through videos and trying to take a concept that might not be the most interesting concept in the world and spinning out, making it as interesting as you possibly can. I think that's such an interesting creative challenge and process. I absolutely love that stuff.
You were a teacher before, right? And I think that's part of the teaching mindset. I was a teacher too before getting into WordPress product development, and I have this memory of geeking out over a Lego, of all the things, geeky things, a Lego instruction manual. And I was talking to someone about how beautifully it explained these difficult concepts of how to put together a big complicated Lego construction. And I was showing someone that step by step, they have these beautiful illustrations. You put this piece on this piece, and I was saying, hey, it's multilingual. You don't need to have any text instructions. It looks beautiful, and it takes a very complicated concept and explains it in very simple terms. And someone looked at me like, "You're really geeking out over this?" But there's a certain joy, right, in taking a complicated topic and explaining it simply.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't a formal teacher. I trained WordPress for 10 years. So in my in my PootlePress days. And I trained about 5,000 people in WordPress. And actually, when I was at uni, I was a tennis coach. And I absolutely loved tennis coaching. But I agree. I mean, there's something beautiful about taking a complex concept and breaking it down so it's easy for people to understand. I think it's called the Feynman. Richard Feynman had a technique where you teach something like you're teaching a child, and then go back and explain the concept, explore the concepts, and then go into more detail. If you can't explain something, understand it better so you can teach it. I think I think teaching people something is such a great way of finding out the pain points as well. I'm a big believer that it'd be great if developers of products were forced to go and teach their plugins to end users, because there's nothing like even trying to write a course for something teaches you the pain points of your products. I think there's nothing quite like teaching to highlight those.
Are you still teaching now, or is it all has all your work?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah. So I ran a course actually at WordCamp US. So how to build a portfolio site in a day. And I think we had about 70 people in the room. And interestingly, about half of them said they'd never used WordPress before, which was really fascinating. And it's something where I'm talking to the folks at WordCamp Asia about trying to introduce a bit more of. Could be something exciting about that we're thinking about. It's a bit early days, but I think there's a big opportunity to try and get beginners into those events by running maybe a day of free training or training for a series of courses to take beginners through that process would be wonderful. Yeah, I'm still doing bits and pieces, and I trained it as part of for Automatic. We went to a conference called OFF in Barcelona, which is a big creative conference for designers, and I did a course there as well, which was again fantastic, full of young creative designers in a room who kind of didn't know what was possible with WordPress. They were all using like Wix and Framer and Webflow, and they were like, "Oh, this is amazing. Well, we're going to start to explore this." So, yeah, I'm still doing bits and pieces, and I want to do much more of it still.
Well, WordCamp, the big WordCamps have always been a little bit of an industry conference rather than aimed at beginners. For about 10 years, we did the training before DrupalCons, and the Drupal team would have a little bit more of a focus on saying, hey, we're going to get like 20, 30% of people at this conference who are completely new to Drupal, who have never touched it. And every year they would have a beginner's training session the day before the conference so people could get up to speed before they went to the main sessions.
And that's really interesting. Were those successful? Did they work?
Well, yeah, they were packed every time. There was probably a slightly different audience, quite a corporate audience at Drupal, so they didn't mind spending a few $100 on a training session. But yeah, it sounds like you hit on a successful niche for WordCamps there with a portfolio project.
Yeah, I think part of the thinking is, this is early days in terms of thinking, but one option is to run the training on the same day as Contributor Day.
Yes. Yeah.
A mixture of, because I don't know if you've heard about Campus Connect, but that's going great guns in terms of the guys going to universities and train cohorts in universities how to use WordPress. So there's some talk that maybe we could ally a Campus Connect with a flagship, because it's going to be in Mumbai. Maybe ally one of those with Mumbai and get folks coming into the the flagship event. But I think there would also be a mixture of kind of those maybe students, university students, young creators, but maybe also people that are in businesses that that have WordPress sites but don't necessarily how to use them. That's kind of what I've seen before as well. But I think it's a huge opportunity to kind of get fresh eyes into WordPress. So yeah, I'm excited about that as a initiative.
Well, you probably think of the YouTube work as some form of teaching, right? It's explaining WordPress concepts in 5 minutes, 6 minutes. Have you looked at your stats? I'm sure you have, closely enough to figure out which videos really take off at the moment. Are there videos you've dropped in the last couple of years which have just really accelerated the growth of your channel that have been super popular?
Well, my kind of mission on the channel has been, as much as possible, to stick to core. I guess that's kind of what I guess that's what separates me from other WordPress channels. And that's really born of my kind of training business and training 5,000 people and going to rooms with, 20 people. And a lot of those people are coming on those courses because they've had sites built for them using all sorts of, the number of ways you can build a simple WordPress site is just astonishing. And the amount of over engineering I've seen over the past 15 years is astonishing. And so as part of my mission has been on the YouTube channel to try and make things as simple as possible for people to build with, but also to reduce technical debt as much as possible for those folks, 2-3 years down the line, which is why I try and stick to core as much as possible, because I've seen, so many sites built with like ACF, which just, and all they want to change is a testimonial on the front page, but they can't do it anymore because it's completely over engineered, because the developer never asked them, do you want to change this site in a year's time? That question never got asked in so many people's sites. That was a long ramble, but essentially my WordPress channel is really around, I'm kind of passionate about trying to help beginners out, I guess, and also put them in the best possible spot so their sites are sustainable. They don't have pain down the track.
Well, do you mind explaining what you are now exactly in terms of working with Automatic? You are the chief YouTube officer.
That's a good title. It's not quite right.
CYTO.
Yeah. I like that better than my title. Let's go with that. Now, my official role is head of WordPress YouTube, and I started off. This is a bit of a long story, which I'll shorten. But I started off working purely on the .org YouTube channel, and we grew that from about, I think when I joined, it was about 35,000 subscribers, and I think we're currently about 113,000 subscribers. So that's grown nicely. I'm now focusing, since what happened at the start of the year in terms of Automatic personnel having a refocus towards the commercial side of the business, which let's not talk about now. More focused now on the .com channel, I guess. So that's currently with about 30,000 subscribers, and the plan is to grow that quite aggressively. So I'm kind of still in feet in both of those. One of the challenges on .org is historically it's been a community-driven channel, which is great because you have lots of community involvement. But YouTube, kind of the nature of YouTube is that it kind of doesn't reward, but what people are looking for on YouTube is a consistent voice and personality, essentially. So it's one of the challenges of the .org channel is how you embrace the community aspect of YouTube, but still kind of have consistency of quality and kind of overall story arc, I guess.
YouTube has certain algorithms that reward getting on the treadmill and every 2 or 3 days dropping an awesome video that gets a lot of comments. And if you're a community channel that suddenly has 80 videos from a WordCamp from 80 random people and just dumps them en masse, that may be wonderful content, but it's not going to be rewarded by the algorithm.
Yeah, well, it's more around the way I'd recommend people think about YouTube. If you are going to do YouTube, it's like, rather than the algorithm, think about the viewer. And if you just think about your own personal behavior, I watch more YouTube now than anything else. I love YouTube, like more than Netflix and anything. You think about your own behavior when you go to YouTube and you subscribe to a channel or you watch a video from a channel. There is a chance you'll likely go back to that channel. But if that channel's content is completely different to what you enjoyed, then you're probably not going to watch that video that time. And then the algorithm goes, okay, well, maybe they're not interested in that. So they won't serve that video up to me or to the next person that's potentially watching that video. So that consistency of editorial tone and voice is super important for the end user, really, because that's what people kind of look for when they subscribe to a YouTube channel. They want that consistency of quality and voice. And that's one of the challenges of .org, that from that community aspect. So it's, there's been lots of discussions around what to do about that. Maybe have a more curated main channel, and then a separately hive off the community ad channel and call that WordPress community. So those discussions are still kind of fluid.
Yeah, I can imagine suddenly if you get 80 notifications of 80 new videos dropped from the WordPress.org channel, and it's the 80 videos that were filmed at, say, WordCamp US. It's wonderful. It's very useful, but it doesn't quite fit what's optimized for YouTube, I guess.
No. And also some of those will be different languages as well. So again, that's problematic in terms of just who the viewer is for those videos and their expectations of what they're seeing.
So you've grown your channel by being a consistent brand. You go to Jamie's channel, you get Jamie every time. I think 100% of the videos have you presenting them.
Yeah, or my daughters have been on a few, but I generally introduce them if they are. They're always,
and they go at a consistent pace. And so every time you get a notification from PootlePress, it's going to be almost exactly what you expect and what you've enjoyed before.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you have any recommendations for people who are launching a YouTube channel for their product? I've noticed quite a few brands have moved away from just putting up strict product demos to trying to get more of the influencer approach.
Yeah.
Is that something you'd recommend for product people?
It depends on the product, actually, because I watched I've been buying, I'm going to have a musical thing now. I've been buying these lately. This is this is an analog synth, right? And I've gone down, I'm a guitarist, so I have no idea what this does. But I bought one and it's really complex. And if you go onto YouTube, there's lots of videos with men with beards and long hair that talk about and envelopes, and it gets really scientific. But I saw a product video this morning from this product company, and it was just a beautifully shot, and it was just a little tiny synth. And it was just a beautiful demo. And because of the way it was shot, I actually bought the thing, and it was quite pricey, so I'm regretting it. But I think it depends. It depends a bit on the product, whether you can shoot that sort of product video so it's so compelling people want to buy it. In my experience, that's quite hard in WordPress. I'd started a YouTube channel a long time ago, and I would talk about my own products, and people generally generally didn't like that so much because I was just, it was clearly I was just selling my own stuff. I wasn't really trying to give value or help to people on YouTube, which is why most people go on YouTube. I was just trying to flog my own products. As soon as I had the mind shift to actually, let's create some content that's going to help people and make it interesting and entertaining, I started getting nice comments and engagement, and people started sharing it. So yeah,
also,
it's
the whole point of your channel is to be helpful, and actually selling a product is probably not even on the list of bullet points anymore. Everything you do is around selling WordPress, I guess now.
Yeah, and sometimes that'll be like, so I cover people's plugins sometimes. Like I've done a few videos lately about, there's a really cool plugin, which these are free, called the View Transitions plugin, which Felix released a few weeks ago. Got a ton of reaction.
Kind of makes the admin area faster.
Makes the admin area faster, but makes the front end beautifully elegant as well. It's just like, basically it predicts the next page in WordPress and serves it, loads it in the background. And so when you click on a link, it's app-like in its kind of movement and effect. So it kind of turns your website into an app. And it's literally, 2 clicks to install it. So I did a little video around that. But again, I'm kind of selling WordPress all the time. I mean, that was a free plugin anyway. But I do think there's, if you are coming back to your question, if you are a product company, I just reflect on the plugins I've bought over the past sort of 5 years. And I've kind of been going back on it. And I generally know the people that make those plugins now, whether it's Mark Westgard at WPS Forms or it's, so I think what I'm trying to say is that building trust around your brand through video content. This is what I'm trying to say. Building trust around your brand through video content is just incredibly powerful. I think Elementor have done an amazing job with Miriam. I just think now when I think of Elementor, I think of Miriam, and that's like trust, thought leadership, I think it's completely transformed their brand in my brain, at least. And I'm sure it's doing that for other people. So it doesn't, I see a lot of brands that will produce a video and think, well, what's the conversion on that video? And it's like, I don't think it's about that YouTube. My advice would be, it's about building brand and trust. I think trust is, especially with AI, building brand and trust in the AI world is going to be probably the most important asset any business can grow over the next 3 years. So my recommendation would be go put everything into that. Don't worry too much about creating a video and having a link and people converting. I don't think that's what where YouTube works, at least not in my experience.
Every time I go on YouTube now, I seem to run across some form of AI video, and it's still very much in the uncanny valley. It sounds as though even though you're a big AI fan and use it for all sorts of different use cases, it hasn't really touched on your YouTube videos yet. We haven't seen like an AI version of Jamie or any AI generated content.
I'm ready for it. I think that's going to be. I've definitely we've been experimenting with some of this stuff at Automatic, but we're finding it's not where we want it to be in terms of it is still uncanny. And personally, I think we're going to get there, but we're not there. In terms of video generation, I've been experimenting with Google VO3 and Flow and stuff like that, but we're still not at the point where you can just prompt a thing and it's going to create you a nice looking video. But honestly, when that happens, the whole world changes. I think that's going to be the biggest change in AI probably that we've seen, when video gen really gets serious and proper and anyone can prompt anything. I think the whole world changes overnight. I don't think we're ready for that yet. It's going to be a massive shift. But yeah, I haven't really used it on my own channel to much degree yet.
It may change when we get the consistency. Whenever I dabble with these tools, I try and say we've got like the PublishPress penguins as one of our company mascot. I've dabbled around trying to make like a little animated version of the penguins, and there's no consistency in the output, which is never going to work for branding. But lately, there's been some inclinations coming out of Google and other platforms that they may be getting closer to solving this.
Yeah, they'll solve it. We're just not quite. I agree. Google VO3 is pretty good that you can, which I've been playing with a bit. I've got some mascots in my brand, which I haven't really used very much, but I've experimented uploading those to Google VO3, and you kind of get, you can then upload close-ups of them and get more consistency, but it's still arduous. It's still taking too long, and it still takes too long to render, and it takes too long to reprompt. But that's gonna get there, and that's gonna be incredibly, I think, very, very, very exciting, because I'm going to be making films. I can't wait for that day. I've got a lot of films I want to make, and I can't do it at the moment.
AI has helped with the guitar. It's helped with the photos. It's helped with the writing and with the blogging, with the coding, and now
films.
The films too.
Films is the one. I think that's going to be so exciting.
So AI has been like digging deeply into your work in lots of areas. You've been writing about AI impacting WordPress as well, that would at an inflection point for WordPress, that it needs to adapt and needs to adapt fast. How are you feeling about AI in September 2025? Right now, you've just come back from WordCamp US, which I didn't make it this year, but I hear there was a ton of talk about AI. How are you feeling after coming back from that?
Well, yeah, I think I posed the question a few weeks ago on, I wrote a blog post around it, but I think AI in WordPress is an interesting point in that there's a lot to talk about here, but I think the stuff happening in WordPress and AI is really cool, and James LePage leading on that is amazing, and some really great stuff is happening. So we've got things like the Features API that's going into WordPress, hopefully in 6.9, which basically means that you can avail your plugin can avail itself of what features it wants to make available to AI, and the AI will be able to talk to those features very easily and then do stuff with them. So that's going to be incredibly cool. And there's loads of cool stuff happening internally within WordPress. And then there's tools like the WordPress.com AI Builder, which is early days, but the bedrock is really cool. And Automatic announced a thing called AI Telex a few weeks ago, which is still in very experimental phase, but lets you basically create Gutenberg blocks just by prompting. I built a really cool block with it today, but again, it's very experimental. So there's some really cool activity and initiatives happening within WordPress, but there's lots of bigger questions, which I think we don't have time to talk about today, which are things like, if you look at the growth of some of these other tools like Lovable and Bolt, Lovable now is valued at, I think, 1.8 billion. It's turning over 100 million a year. It's had enormous growth. Their view on the world is that only 1% of people can code. It's probably too high, but thereafter the 99% of people can't code. And I think there is this movement where like if you just look at my personal behavior, I've built like 40 apps maybe over the last 3 months, 3 websites, what I'd call traditional websites. So I think there is this general movement where people are going to build. I think there's this thing is happening, which is like the web is being appified to a certain degree. And those might be traditional websites like WordPress, but those might be apps like the apps I'm building, which are websites, but they're kind of app sites in a way. And I think that's a big question for WordPress, whether it does want to go after that space, which is high growth. And it could just stay in its lane. But my article was saying, is WordPress just PHP, MySQL? Is it just this thing that we've always lent on? Or actually, if we broke free of those things and we said, actually, WordPress is the mission to democratize publishing and building on the web, does it free us up to actually start to compete with Lovable and Bolt and these other tools? So people could, at some point in the future, build very app-like experiences with it. So that would be a huge strategic shift. But the risk is if we don't do that as a WordPress, tools like Lovable and Bolt and all these other tools that are growing, well, actually, you can build websites in those, not just apps. So the risk is those will actually start to impinge on the WordPress market share. And so if we just stay in our lane, the risk for me is, I don't think it'll be devastating quickly, but over time, I think those will start to erode kind of the WordPress market share if we do to stay in our lane. And there is a whole generation of people that are being educated on how to build just using prompts, which I think is a huge shift as well now. Like my children now, they're building just by prompting, and that is that is going to be their expectation. That's what they're learning. So yeah, there's lots of big questions around WordPress. I think we're doing some really cool stuff, but the wider stuff is like really interesting.
Yeah, my daughter she's just turned 16, and she came back with a school project to build a social app for her school. And it would have like a marketplace, it would have an events calendar, it would have a commenting area. And so I suggested WordPress. It's like, why don't I try one of these vibe coding apps? And I was like, well, that's a lot to do. You have to think about the authentication. You have to think about X, Y, and Z. And lo and behold, she came back like 3 days later. She built the whole thing in a vibe coding app, and it was good. It was fast. It was quick. It had all the pieces I probably hadn't quite expected that a vibe coding app would provide.
And that's an extraordinary story, isn't it? And I think that's the big question for me now is like, does WordPress, is there room in that market for an open source community driven vibe coding tool? I think it'd be great if there is an opportunity if WordPress wanted to go into that space, but that it would be a huge strategic shift for us to do that.
Part of the issue might be the fragmentation of the different plugins. That I can imagine perhaps, say, one very large plugin company that may have all the pieces, a form builder, a photo gallery, from A to Z, all the different pieces. They could provide an AI tool that would allow you to type in a prompt and spit out an events calendar site, a school website. And there are companies out there trying to build something like that, I guess, with maybe a bit of a walled garden approach. They say, hey, you can vibe code a website with these 45 hand-selected plugins. The fragmented nature of WordPress might make that a little more difficult.
Yeah, I think if you were going to do it, you'd have to, I think it's very implausible that WordPress can do it, but you'd have to actively disrupt your own market and eat your own market and say, we're not going to take the same approach. I mean, it's much easier for a Lovable and a Bolt to do this stuff because they have no legacy. They can literally just, they can start from where we are today. But WordPress has massive distribution, massive brand, massive ecosystem.
Yeah.
The question is what we're doing in WordPress going to be enough to still have the level of growth, or the growth that potentially is the market opportunity, like the growth you're seeing in Bolt and Lovable is absolutely enormous at the moment. Do we want a piece of that, or are we happy staying where we're at?
It sounds like you guys over at Automatic are taking this thread differently from others in the past. Automatic has just formed an AI team that is in person, focused entirely on AI. I mean, it sounds as if internally at Automatic, they're doing some major disruptions to the way things have been done in the past in order to try and catch up on AI.
Yeah, I think there's obviously lots of different. One of the beautiful things about Automatic is there's lots of space to have different opinions and different voices, so that where you fit on AI is never going to, and I've seen this with developers as well, whether you think that AI is never going to achieve anything or it's a massive existential threat. I think there's different, where you sit on that spectrum, there's lots of different voices on that. But I think Matt Mullenweg definitely understands that we are for me, it's probably the most exciting time to be in, I'll say, publishing services or website building or app building that we've had ever in our lifetime, probably since the Gutenberg press came out. I mean, it's a uniquely honored place to be. It's going to be massively disruptive and scary, but crikey, this next 5-10 years is probably going to form the next 200 years in terms of what this thing looks like. A bit like the Industrial Revolution did, kind of set the scene for the next 200 years. I think we're in that moment, and it's a incredible moment to be involved in.
There is very much a positive spin that you can put on this, that with the Gutenberg press, you had the only way to make a book was a bunch of monks sat in a dark room endlessly copying out a new version of an existing book. Into history, I got a whole bunch of history books behind me. I remember hearing one story. One guy basically collected all the stories of the monks complaining because they'd have to say they'd make a copy of the Bible. They'd be like, I got to sit here and copy endlessly. My hand is killing me, and I need to go to the bathroom. Like, this is terrible. This author is terrible. He's really boring. Before the Gutenberg press, literally, that was the only way to make a new book. And now, after the Gutenberg press, books just exploded. Hundreds and thousands of books. Copies were 10 a penny. And you're sat here now telling me that you've knocked up 40 apps so far this year. That it could be that if we're using the Gutenberg analogy, it may not be a winner-takes-all scenario. We may be looking at an era where just the sheer amount of software that's created is going insane.
I think that's right. I think it's a bit like video content and TikTok. TikTok enabled this. I mean, I'm not saying it was for the best, by the way. TikTok enabled this mass acceleration of people creating, and like YouTube did, mass creation of video content that we never had before. So the market just exploded, and I think we're going to see the same thing with apps and websites. So I don't think it's a question of there's only this many apps and this many websites, and we need a piece of it. This stuff is going to grow like weed over the next 5 years. It might be.
So what we saw with, say, TikTok and YouTube in the past, and what you're seeing with AI now, is basically what happened with you. That these tools unlocked the creative part of people's brain that they may not have been using before.
Yeah, but at the same time, there's never been an easier time to create horrible content. So there's definitely going to be some. I actually wrote an article yesterday about the fact that, which I think is quite an interesting sort of thought, which is ever since ChatGPT properly came out, that marked a moment in time that from that moment on, we'll never know whether a piece of content was written with AI or not written with AI, which is that's a really profound thought for me. That's that's a line in the sand. From this moment on, humanity, we can't prove that humanity wrote it. We'll always be suspect that AI, our alien friend, was involved in the process somewhere, and we can't go back. So that's an interesting moment in time as well.
Yeah, things are changing so fast that 2024, 2025 with AI, you've got, say, trying to pinpoint the date of the internet explosion. Probably, you could say 2004, maybe, with Facebook and social networks taking off. Then you have Gutenberg in the 1400s. This is one of those eras that will be stamped for centuries to come.
It will. I agree. It's thrilling but scary.
So, final question for you that we ask everyone, and I'll try and expand this for you. If we have publishers on if we have, say, magazine people on the podcast, then
Yeah.
I will ask them if there's a great magazine or publisher that they've been reading, who they really enjoy lately. Is there a writer, publisher, content creator, someone whose work that you're really enjoying right now, who you'd love to recommend?
Well, I've actually become a bit old school lately, Steve. I've actually been, now excuse the politics on this, but this is the Spectator magazine. I've been reading, trying to buy as much as possible, newspapers lately as well, and just leave them around the house for my kids to read. I've gone back to paper. No, my recommendation is go back to paper. But the Spectator is interesting because it's kind of, if people don't know, it's kind of slightly right of center, but it does allow different voices in there as well. But the writing is really good. I mean, they've got some really great writers in there. My personal favorite writers are people like Matthew Paris, who writes in the Times. I just think he's a beautiful writer. But I think the Spectator is interesting because they are financially making money. They're growing their business. I think they're growing online as well. They've also got a YouTube channel. So yeah, is that enough?
Yeah, there's a guy we had on the podcast recently, Jacob Donnelly, who he runs a big media event in the US and covers publishing news. And lately he's been talking a lot about the value of publishers actually putting out a physical copy. It's like a real, like signal of quality that in an era of AI generated slop, that someone has thought this content valuable enough to format and print and mail out, that it's a status symbol almost for your content.
Yeah, and they're just tangibly beautiful things to they're beautiful things to hold and read, and distraction free. So I've been trying to buy more, which sounds odd because I'm in WordPress, trying to buy more paper to read around the house, because it's very shareable as well. And they're beautiful things to look at. I mean, the typesetting is beautiful in them. I mean, look at that. Beautiful.
Oh yeah, that is nice. I guess it's it comes back to the idea of just having more content, right? You have the books, you have the magazines, you have the TikToks, and we're in an era now where if people are creative, there's so many avenues, and WordPress is one, AI is one. Almost every year we're adding a new avenue to unpick people's creativity. Yeah.
I think what's interesting as well, especially about the, like when I've seen this done well on YouTube, the depth that people can go to on YouTube in terms of video content is like if you compare mainstream news now, like you watch the BBC in the UK and like news at 10, and then you watch a YouTube video on the same subject, that's just incomparable. YouTube can go into so much more depth and nuance, and it could be like a 2-hour video on this thing that BBC has covered in 5 minutes. So that's a really interesting inflection point as well, the fact that more people are turning. I mean, on one hand, people like some of my children, I haven't got that many, but some of them will watch like TikTok, where you get very short form, but also some of them will watch like 3-hour video on politics. So there is this kind of rise of the opposites happening as well at the moment, where you've got this terrific short form video, but you've got this incredible depth available as well. So I'm quite hopeful with some of that stuff as well, because some of that long form stuff is getting a huge amount of videos and traction, and all sorts of niche areas. People are prepared to put the time in. So I'm not completely despondent that even though our attention spans are rubbish, there is still a cohort of people that do want to watch in-depth stuff and really go into the detail on it.
That's the trick for middle-aged people like us, I guess, is to hold those two, the pros and cons, the pessimism and the optimism in our hands at the same time, and try and balance them out, and hopefully feel good and do some creative work.
Yeah, and obviously as we get older, we'll get more and more grumpy, but there's something to fight against, I think.
Hey, creativity is probably the best solution for that, right?
Well, exactly, yeah, that helps.
So, Jamie, where can people find your work on YouTube?
Okay, yeah. So if you go to YouTube, 2 options. You just type Jamie WordPress into YouTube and you'll find me. But my official address is at JamieWP. And then on Twitter, I'm at PootlePress. And then connect with me on LinkedIn. That'll be fun. I'm more active on LinkedIn these days as well. That's been it's not quite as horrible as it used to be in the old days. It seems there's more authentic stuff going on, and rather people not just making stuff up about their CV. So I'm quite enjoying LinkedIn at the moment. So those are kind of the three main places where you can find me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jamie.
Thank you, Steve. Great to see you again. Thanks, everyone.